Call the meeting to order. We're now to call the meeting to order for the land use hearings. It's, once again, May 5th, 2015.
Got a call on the county.
Yes, are we ready? County Manager, are you ready?
We are ready. We have three items for your consideration. Our first land use case this morning is PRC 2014-13 Zunai Residences. Chris LaRue with our planning departments will be presenting this case.
Thank you. So this is the Zunai Residences case. It's PRC 2014-13. This is a request for a major subdivision or preliminary plat to combine six lots into one parcel. It's a rezoning from C4, R2, and R1C to planned unit development, and then a preliminary development plan or PUD to create a townhome development. And previously, as you see on the case history, it was planned as a mixed-use development with townhomes, apartments, and commercial. Now it's solely for townhomes. Here's the site in the surrounding area. It's on the county line along 52nd Avenue. Here is Zunai Street. This is Wyandotte over here to the east, and these are the parcels that are impacted that are highlighted in the blue. So originally the Planning Commission, had continued this case once to allow the applicant an opportunity to continue to work with the neighborhood and potentially alter their plans. As I had stated, originally it had commercial and apartments associated with it. There were some concerns with some of the comments we received during the referral. During that Planning Commission hearing, there was a citizen that came forward in support of the project, and another citizen who provided testimony with concerns. But the primary concern expressed was the development was too intense as originally proposed with respect to density and land area. Specifically, the neighboring property owners were in opposition to the apartments, but they seemed supportive of townhomes. The applicant held another neighborhood meeting in associated with the project in February to discuss the community concerns, modify the development proposal in a way that complements, enhances the surrounding community. They were trying to see if they could get support. And the goal of modifying the plan was to create a development that could ultimately be supported by the neighborhood. And therefore, we're where we're at today, which is to create 20-unit townhome plan for the site. Comprehensive plan designates the site and surrounding areas urban residential. Those are areas designated for single, multiple family housing and urban densities. They're intended to provide for development of residential neighborhoods with a variety of housing types, adequate urban services, transportation facilities. Urban residential areas may include supporting neighborhood commercial uses designed to serve a neighborhood. And so the subdivision component's a preliminary plat to create one parcel. And it would be 1.783 acres, ultimately zoned to PUD. The Berkeley Water and Sanitation District would provide water and sewer. There'd be a couple of accesses, one on Wyandotte, the other on Zunai. Internal driveways within development would be maintained by the developer. And the second request is for the preliminary plan unit development for the townhomes. The housing product for this development is meant to appeal to medium income families. They stated the proposal suggests low to mid-scale townhome buildings in an urban house form at that intersection. And again, the small apartment building with commercial once proposed has been eliminated in favor of entirely townhomes. Each unit is somewhere between 1,500 and 1,800 square feet. It would include three bedrooms and an attached two-car garage. Additionally, there'd be 10 visitor parking spaces have been provided on site. That meets the required 2.5 spaces per unit parking ratio required by code. There'd be landscaping around the entire site. There aren't any 0-foot setbacks for any of the structures. All the contiguous parcels are proposed to be buffered with landscaping and building setbacks. Among the components the applicant should be required to depict on their final PUD, they're not limited to these elements, but some of them would include specific setbacks, dimensions of the buildings, design and development standards with building entrance, orientations, landscaping, parking, architectural components. There's a variety of things we'll want to see on the final, building placement, etc. So the applicant has submitted conceptual drawings and renderings of the possible architecture, landscaping, and parking. I have all those scanned in here. We'll show in a moment. All of these details that as I had outlined will need to be fully provided within the final development plan. And this preliminary PUD does present an overall plan for the development of the site as an urban level development. The overall concept as proposed would be consistent with the comprehensive plan. And so they had another neighborhood meeting that was again held in April. At that meeting, they only had 2 neighbors that were in attendance, and general comments were expressed concerning traffic, Some people said they were okay with a coffee shop. And then they sent secondary public outreach informational flyers, both in English and Spanish in the area, to try to make sure that they covered a variety of residents. We had received 10 comments from surrounding property owners and approximately 6 phone calls. The week of February 9th, a petition was submitted with 35 names. That petition indicated that most were opposed to the apartment complex of the development. Support was stated for the townhomes. We sent out a new referral for the townhome-only development, and we'd received 2 letters in support of that request. We didn't receive any negative comments. So the Planning Commission heard this case on 2/12. They recommended unanimous continuance the first time around, and then they considered it again on April 9th, and they recommended unanimous approval at that point. That was after they redesigned, retooled the development. The Planning Commission was complimentary to the applicant for working with the community to arrive at a development that could be acceptable to the neighborhood and area. We had 3 citizens that came forward that gave testimony during that public hearing. All 3 did not state any concerns regarding the townhome development. Testimonies provided they hoped the materials and look of the development would be of a high quality. So then here's the overall air photo. It's 52nd and Zunai. Here are the parcels that are impacted again. Here's a closer view of those. This is the AT&T facility located directly to the west. And here's Wyandotte, Zunai, and 52nd again. Here's just another view showing 52nd and Zunai. Here is the site that would be developed if approved. It just kind of shows a regional area. Here's the site on the county line. You can see Federal off to the west, Pecos over here to the east. And these were some of the original opposition comments that we'd received, and that was when it included commercial and apartment buildings. And so since they redid the request, a lot of these have gone away. There's a lot more support. This was the original design that they were showing that showed an apartment building and commercial. I just put it in there just to show what they've changed it into. Now it would just all be townhome units. And this shows a conceptual site plan with some landscaping. And again, the final PUD would show this in a much greater detail, but this gives you a concept of how that would look and fit in. And these were provided by the applicant. They basically show artist renditions or visions of how it potentially could look in the real world once it's developed. It shows townhomes. This by no means would indicate what the final look would be, but it gives you an idea of how it would look at the street level, the massing, et cetera. And again, that's the AT&T facility over there that you're seeing. This is another view that's looking in a northeast direction along 52nd and Zunai. These are pictures then that I took in the area. This is looking west on 52nd Avenue at Zunai. That's looking south at 52nd Zunai. That's looking down into Denver. There's the park south of the site. There's east on 52nd. Here is the site. That's looking north on Zunai. This is the site again. It's the AT&T facility. Here's the site, undeveloped. It's facing east. That's looking back. This street here is Wyandotte, so it's over here on the site plan. That's looking north on Wyandotte. It's looking on the east edge of the development. That's looking back west from Wyandotte towards Zunai. Another view southwest, that's looking along 52nd, back across towards the park. So we feel the applicants responded to the neighborhood concerns. They're now proposing a project they feel will address the concerns of area residents with respect to density, also would fit with the area. The Planning Commission and staff are recommending approval. It includes 20 findings, 16 conditions, and 3 notes. That concludes the staff report.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any comments or questions? At this time, we would like the applicant to please approach the podium. Thank you. If you guys could each state your name for the record.
I'm Richard Luna, the developer.
I'm Tom Wirtz, I'm the architect.
Thank you. Do you have any comments on staff's presentation?
No, I'm happy with it.
Okay. Do you have any presentation or anything that you want us to know about?
We have not prepared a presentation. We have worked really closely with the neighborhood, think that the outcome is really positive. So we're very pleased with where we're at this point.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Henry.
So you decided to take the commercial out of the
Yes,
project?
we didn't want to, but, you know, in fact, we explained it to them that amenities would really help the neighborhood, and they just didn't want it. I mean,
That's
I was staying at
unfortunate. That
a
really is
restaurant, a
unfortunate.
coffee house, and they were fighting it, so I didn't want to get in a battle.
I would have been okay with you leaving it in.
Yeah, I would too. It's a great view to downtown if you had a restaurant right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll find another piece of property and they'll allow us to do it.
Commissioner Hanson.
I can appreciate your desire to work with the neighbors. I really do. I mean, I think that's commendable. I will say that I think our job as county commissioners is that you take into account what the neighbors have to say. You take into account what you think the overall need of the community is, what the developer wants, what the zoning code is, the plan, and everything else. And I don't think that and at the end of the day, it means that the commissioners are the final say. It doesn't mean that the neighbors are the final say. You know, so from my perspective, a little bit of commercial, you know, on this corner, especially considering you've got a commercial building right next door to that, you know, would make a certain amount of sense.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I personally don't have a problem approving what you have in front of you, but I wouldn't have a problem if you added some of the commercial back either.
Well, hopefully we'll be back here with some commercial space.
Commissioner Henry.
Yeah, I would support the commercial space also. One of the things is when we start looking for transportation grants or housing grants or any kind of that, they actually are looking for the mixed use in the neighborhoods. And not having that mixed use actually handicaps the county when it comes to applying for grants. Even, if we wanted to get a grant for the park across the street, they're going to be wanting to know if we have mixed use in the neighborhood. So I highly encourage you to put your commercial back in.
Okay.
Do we have any other commissioners that have comments? I do. I have a question. Do you recall in the communications, because I've looked through a lot of I've looked through all of the complaints that happened that were submitted prior to you changing your plans, but do you recall generally what was it that they were concerned about with the commercial? Is it that bringing people into the neighborhood, or?
I think what they were really complaining about was they thought we were going to put apartments in, and they have a lot of apartments behind us, and they're low-end apartments, and I think they were scared that we were going to put in junk, and that's not what we were going to put in. It was going to be some very nice apartments. But I don't know. That's the only thing I saw.
I'd also offer that there was some concern about the parking. We were looking at a lower parking ratio to make the mixed use work in an urban format, and there was some concern about the amount of parking that we could actually fit on the site.
Thank you. Staff, do you have any comments on that particular issue about commercial? Do you recall kind of what the general feel was at the time?
Well, I agree with what the applicant said. I mean, in large part, the concerns were the apartment component. There was a little concern with commercial, primarily related to parking. We'd done a lot of back and forth, as you saw in the staff report, about looking at different standards for that we were working with them on it. But ultimately, the applicant decided the townhome development was the way to go.
It sounds like the neighborhood's on board with what's being proposed right now.
I would say yes, they are.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any comments?
I'm just going to go ahead and add again that the commercial would be good for the entire community. So, I would support that. That's the only comment I have.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hanson, did you have a question? No? I guess I have a question. If we were to take a step back and look at where the commercial opportunities exist along the street, all the way from Pecos to Federal, can you highlight some of those if we look at that land use or zoning map again?
Yeah, so I can zoom out here. So here are here's the site. It's got the C4, the R2, and the R1C. You can see Federal. You can see Pecos. You can see some of the commercial zonings that are on here that are in red. I can turn on the aerial so you can see a better view. It's about a half mile, I believe. Well, it might come on. I didn't click it on. There it goes. There we go. So here's some of the commercial zonings that I had just shown you a second ago. And the site again is over here to the west. This is the AT&T facility.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioners, do I have a motion? Oh, I'm so sorry. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak about this particular case? Is there anyone signed up to speak about this particular case?
There was not.
There is not. One more time, anyone from the public want to speak on this case? At this time, I will close public comment. Thank you very much. Now, commissioners, do I have a motion?
All right, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve with 20 fines, 16 conditions, and 3 notes. And again, I'll add a comment at the fact that I would really like to see commercial on this site.
Commissioner Henry,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanson, Commissioner Pulaski,
Yes.
Commissioner Odericio.
Okay. Our next land use case is PRC 2014-8, Ryberg Industrial Subdivision. And I believe Emily Collins is going to be handling this case.
I do know that the applicant was awaiting the arrival of their attorney. I think he's out in the lobby. Emily can go check in with him real quick and see if they're ready to go.
Are we available to skip to the next one?
We are. We can certainly do the next one.
We can
Okay.
do that.
Okay, we'll move on to item 3 and come back to 2. PLT 2014-10,
Too late.
Jogan Estates subdivision. And Chris LaRue is again here to talk through that case.
Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you again. It's Jogan Estates, PLT 2015-15. Here's the site and the surrounding area. The site's highlighted in the light blue. It's along Ealer Parkway. Here is Havana. Over to the west is Yosemite. And so it's a request for a minor subdivision or final plat to create 3 parcels in the A1 zone district. And according to the applicant, the purpose for this subdivision plat is to sell each lot after approval of the final plat. It's located southwest of Ealer Street and 152nd Avenue. And again, the surrounding area is A1. Future land use map identifies the site as estate residential. This use would be consistent with that. The estate residential land use is to provide opportunity for exurban lifestyle or low-intensity neighborhood outside of municipalities with a gross housing density of no greater than 1 unit per 2 acres. Each of the 3 lots will be over the minimum 2.5 acres required in the A1 zone. Lot 1 would be 2.71, Lot 2 would be a little over 3, and Lot 3 would be just a little over 5 acres. All of them would have the minimum lot width of 100 feet along, or Lot 1 would have the minimum lot width of 100 feet along Ealer and 152nd. Lots 2 and 3 are designed as flag lots, and they have the minimum 30 feet of frontage along 152nd Avenue. Size of the proposed lots are adequate to accommodate septic systems and replacement systems should that need ever arise. During the referral period for this case, staff received a letter from Colorado Division of Water Resources confirming the 300-year supply of water pursuant to Section 504-050604 of the Adams County Development Standards. We did not receive any negative comments from any referral agencies. We did receive 2 letters from area residents. One expressed a desire to keep the property as open space and also expressed concerns with potential traffic and construction noise. Other resident was concerned with traffic, weeds, blocking of view sheds, and fencing. Planning Commission considered this case on April 23rd. They unanimously recommended approval of the request. During that hearing, we recommended a condition of approval that, which was accepted by the Planning Commission, and that's reflected on the report that basically just says that a shared maintenance agreement for the access easement should be submitted for the new lots prior to issuance of any building permits, just to make sure that that's maintained. Planning Commission did not have any questions for the applicant. No public testimony was presented. And the applicant had no question or concerns with the staff report or recommended conditions of approval. Here's the aerial, again showing Yosemite, Ealer Parkway, and the site in the light blue. This basically shows the Jogan Estates subdivision, how it would look. North would be here to the left, so it's turned. And here you can see the 3 lots. Again, this one has the frontage, 2 frontages along 152nd and Ealer. These 2 lots then have the flag access out to 152nd. And then it's proposed that there'd be just a shared access easement across the flag so that there's only one point onto the road there. Pictures of the area, this is looking north on 152nd towards Ealer Parkway. So looking along 152nd here on the plan. There's northeast from 152nd, looking at some of the development. There's a site facing southwest from 152nd. Another view of the site southwest from 152nd. So the site's over here. This is looking at some of the homes that would back up to the proposal. It's just another view there, 152nd. So staff has found that the subject request is consistent with the development standards and regulations. The 3 proposed lots would exceed the minimum requirements for the A1 zone. It's consistent with the level and intensity of development in the surrounding area. Planning Commission and staff are recommending approval based upon 11 findings, 1 condition, and 1 note. And that concludes the staff report.
Thank you, Chris. Commissioners, do you have any comments or questions? Okay. Would the applicant please approach the podium? Thank you very much. If you could, once you get to the podium, state your name and spell your last name and your address.
Kevin Hergert, Hergert, 10107 East 154th Avenue, Brighton, Colorado, 80602.
Mr. Hergert, do you have any, do you have any comments on the proposal or the presentation given by staff?
No, sir.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mr. Hergert? It sounds like it meets all the requirements. It's part of the long-range planning, so I don't have any questions either. At this time, I'd like to open up the forum for public comment. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak on this particular case? Anyone signed up for this case?
No.
All right, seeing that there's no public comment, commissioners, do I have a motion? Or any other comments or questions?
Sure, I'd be happy to make a motion if you pull the, move to approve with 11 findings of fact, 1 condition, and 1 note. Thank you.
Second.
Commissioner Hanson,
Aye.
Commissioner Henry,
Yes.
Commissioner Pulaski,
Yes.
Commissioner Odoracio.
Yes, Mr. Hergert, good luck with your
Thank you.
plan. Will the county manager call the next case, please?
We will go back to case number 2, that's PRC 2014-8. It's Ryberg Industrial Subdivision, and Emily Collins with our planning department will be walking through the case for you.
Good morning. So this is Ryberg PRC 2014-8. So this is a request for a plat correction to create 1 lot from 2 lots in the Eaton Industrial and Anders Retreat subdivision. And the second request is to rezone the new lot from I-1 and I-2 zoning to I-2 industrial. Previous requests on the site, the eastern parcel of the property was platted in the Anders Retreat Park Block 1 in 1889. The second parcel of the subject property was platted in the Eaton Industrial subdivision in 1981 and amended in 1987 to create 1 lot. The property was also rezoned to I-2 industrial in 1981. A variance request for setbacks and landscape depth, as well as a special use permit for 2
Emily,
temporary
could
structures.
you hold on just one moment? I'm sorry.
Sure.
I think what we need to... Thank you, Val. Sorry, Emily.
Not a problem.
Okay. Sir, did you need us to repeat anything? Could you hear what she was saying?
Up to this point, yes.
Yes, you could hear?
Yes.
Okay. Emily, please proceed. Thank
Okay,
you.
No problem. So lastly, one of the previous requests was a variance for setbacks and landscape depth, as well as a special use permit for 2 temporary structures, which was approved by the Board of Adjustment in 1981. So here we have the site outlined in light blue. So the longer skinny piece is the Eaton Industrial parcel, and then the small triangular parcel is the Anders Block 1. So the site is located here along 54th Avenue, and this is Washington Street to the west. So the surrounding area is also composed of PUD, I-1, 2, and 3 industrial zoned properties. The municipal boundaries of the City of Commerce City are to the east, and the City and County of Denver to the south and east. And the future land use map designates this site as industrial. So again, here you can see the zoning, so primarily industrial zone districts with a PUD directly east. And then the white areas would be the City and County of Denver, and then farther east we have Commerce City. So per section 2216 of the Adams County Development Standards, the applicant has applied for a plat correction to combine 2 platted parcels into 1 parcel. The applicant wishes to combine Block 1 of the Anders Retreat Park, which is approximately 0.3435 of an acre, with Lot 1 of the Eaton Industrial Subdivision First Amendment, and that property is 2.924 acres, for a new lot with an approximate total of 3.286 acres. Additionally, per section 2213, the applicant has applied to rezone the new lot from I-1 and I-2 to I-2 Industrial to allow outdoor storage in excess of 100% of the building area, per section 410249. So outdoor storage in the I-2 zone district is limited to 80% of the lot, which in this case would be approximately 2.6 acres or 10 acres per the regulation. So any amount of storage over the 80% or 10 acres does require a conditional use permit. So the intent of the industrial zone districts are to accommodate light manufacturing, processing, fabrication, assembly, and storage of non-hazardous and/or non-obnoxious material and products, as well as allowing service facilities for industries and their employees. The applicant's request for I-2 zoning to allow outdoor storage of personal and recreational vehicles is consistent with the surrounding area, and the proposed use for limited outdoor storage is consistent with the industrial zone districts. So currently, the applicant is in the process of demolishing existing structures, some of which cross lot lines, and does not propose any new buildings for the foreseeable future. In order to make the lot consistent with Adams County standards, the plat correction is required, as the current Lot 1 Anders does not meet the minimum 2-acre lot size requirement for the I-2 zone district per section 32571. So the plat correction will create a new 3-acre plus lot, which is then eligible for rezoning. Lot has 1 existing access point off of 54th Avenue and does not propose any new access points from the rear of the property near 56th Avenue. The total lot frontage is over 300 feet and therefore exceeds the minimum 125-foot requirement in the I-2 zone district. And during the referral period, staff did not receive any citizen comments. The City of Commerce City and the Geological Survey had no concerns. The Tri-County Health Department stated the applicant must file a notice of demolition form with CDPHE Air Pollution Control Division, and if applicable, arrange for an inspection before any other structures are demolished. Additionally, the site is located within the flammable gas overlay, and any new construction will require a flammable gas investigation plan. Xcel Energy responded with a basic conflict, as there are existing transmission lines and an easement on the property. Any activities within the Xcel right-of-way will require approval, and the applicant must contact Larry Claxton for development review. The Adams County Transportation Department submitted general comments and stated any new construction of activity may require on-site grading and drainage permits. While the site does have some areas within the 500-year floodplain, no additional permitting is required for development in the floodplain. Right-of-way has not been requested with this application. So previously, the Planning Commission considered this case on February 26th and unanimously recommended continuance until April 23rd to allow the applicant to address several unresolved comments and issues from referral agencies. These issues included the following. An improvement survey plat was requested to show any existing improvements on the site and to determine their locations compared to county right-of-way and easements. It was unclear if the site had adequate access onto a county-maintained right-of-way. The building permit file lacked evidence of approved permits for the existing structures and fences on site. An easement for the farmers and gardeners ditch was not shown on the current plat, and it was shown on the original Eaton Industrial plat, so it was unclear if it had been vacated by the ditch company. It was unclear if the parking and landscape requirements could be met based on the unclear locations of existing improvements compared to the property lines. And so staff requested verification from the fire department that they had adequate access and clearance for emergency vehicles onto the site. So the improvement survey plat is no longer required, as the applicant has stated he intends to demolish all of the remaining structures on the property. Per section 1591 of the County Development Standards and section 101.2 of the 2012 International Building Code requirements, the applicant shall be required to submit demolition permit applications to the Building Safety Division prior to removing any buildings on the property. The applicant shall be required to comply with any requirements from building safety or the state. In addition, any proposal to construct a new building on the property would require a building permit consistent with setback requirements of the zone district. The applicant has provided a letter from the Adams County Fire Rescue dated July 2nd, 2014, stating the existing fire lane access into and throughout the property does not meet the minimum 24-foot width requirements per section 503 of the International Fire Code 2006 edition. Staff is recommending a condition of approval to require the applicant to provide all-weather surface as approved by the fire department, including but not limited to the 24-foot clear fire lane. So there was also a variance case, A7781, in which the Board of Adjustment approved variances for reductions in setbacks for 2 structures on the property, and also approved a variance for reduction in landscape depth along 54th Avenue, which is the south property line of the site. There are building permit applications on file for these structures that received the variance approvals. However, there is no information on file indicating the county issued final building permits for the structures. In addition, the variance granting a reduction in landscape depth required an 8-foot retaining wall with a chain link fence and a green belt area along the 54th Avenue and Emerson Street right-of-ways. So the applicant had submitted a copy of the retaining wall plans showing this green belt terrace. Staff also obtained a copy of an approved building permit for the retaining wall. So staff is recommending a condition of approval that the applicant shall comply with the landscape plan on file. So this includes a green belt area along the top of the retaining wall with 1 tree and 2 shrubs per 8 linear feet, as shown on the plan. So this shall consist of low-growing shrubs and an automatic irrigation system. Staff also identified documentation of a development agreement from case 3580ZP from the Eaton Industrial Subdivision plat that required the property owner to construct curb, gutter, and sidewalk. Staff is recommending a condition of approval to require the applicant to comply with this development agreement, and the improvement shall extend to the end of the new property line created by the plat correction. So on April 23rd, the Planning Commission considered this case again and recommended unanimous approval. During the public hearing, the PC asked the applicant if he understood the conditions of approval being recommended and to be aware that the conditions will be non-negotiable if adopted by the Board of County Commissioners. The applicant responded that he did not understand the necessity of the conditions, especially the requirement to construct curb, gutter, and sidewalk on an existing property and business that has operated without that infrastructure. So staff explained to the applicant and the Planning Commission that the conditions requiring the curb, gutter, and sidewalk were from a previously executed development agreement on the property. Staff also explained to the applicant that the parcel directly east at 5400 Washington is also required to make the same improvements per the development agreement. And so the Planning Commission recommended approval in a 4-1 vote with Commissioner Mosco as a dissenting vote. So again, here we have an aerial overview of the site. 54th Avenue would be the southern property line, Washington Street to the west. 56th Avenue would be at the north here. So again, Eaton Industrial is the larger piece, and Andrews Retreat is the small triangular piece. So here we have the plat correction, which would show this property line removed and the triangular Anders portion incorporated into the overall lot. So here, we are standing at the base of the property. This is 54th Avenue and Washington Street down here, looking west. So here we're looking north into the subject property. So this would be up the driveway. This is looking southeast on 54th Avenue. So across the street would be City and County of Denver. So again, just as looking directly south. Again, looking east, so here we can see the retaining wall that was built by the applicant. So it's looking northeast into the site from the gate into the subject property. The applicant did indicate that he painted these yellow stripes to provide a clearance area for emergency access. This is looking from the driveway southwest. So again, Washington Street would be to our right. So it's looking northwest from 54th Avenue at the subject property. So again, you can see the retaining wall and the chain link fence. You can see the Excel transmission lines that run through the property. This is the northwest corner, so this was partially the Emerson Street right-of-way and the vacant PUD next door. This is another view looking west along the length of the property, so the street improvements would be required along the whole length. This is looking northwest, so again, the Excel transmission lines run the length of the property and at an angle, which is hard to see from this view, but there is another right-of-way, Horton Court, which extends at a diagonal along the property. So it is staff determination that the applicants have presented a proposal consistent with the development standards and regulations, and that the newly created lot would exceed the minimum requirements for the I-2 zone district. And the proposal is consistent with the level of intensity of development in the surrounding area. It is also my understanding that the applicant has recently hired legal representation who will be here to speak on their behalf today. So staff and planning commission are recommending approval with 8 findings of fact, 8 conditions, and 1 note. And that concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff? No. At this time, could the applicant or representatives of the applicant please approach the podium, give us your last name and your address?
Good morning. Hubert T. Morrow. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Ryberg, who's also present. First of all, I am going to second the statement that Mr. Ryberg is agreeable to the plan, but he does have some concerns that he'd like to address this morning. First of all, there is some concern about the extension of the curb and gutter all the way to, I believe it's Emerson Street. He feels that that might create a hazard because the public is apparently gotten into the habit of making U-turns there and other uses right where Emerson Street should be, although Emerson Street doesn't really exist at this time, and would request that maybe the curb and gutter be shorted just a little bit, maybe 20 feet before it reaches Emerson Street to avoid issues or problems there. Also, he has some concerns about the deadline for the landscaping on the east side of the property. And I think he can probably articulate that better than I can.
Our plan is to proceed with the curb and gutter just as quick as I can get the electric company that's to the west of us in agreement. I think we can do it together. I'd like to have that in before I do that landscaping because of maybe destroying part of the landscaping. And I'd like to delay that July date to August or somewhere in there. Give me 4 months or so to get that curb and gutter in, and I'll have it in by that time. And the shortage down by Emerson Street, I'm looking at all those cars making U-turns and hitting that, and some attorney getting in your pocket and mine too. I'd like to shorten that somewhat so it's back closer to where my building line was, because we have setbacks there, and if we can shorten it 20 feet, it'll be out of the way of any of their U-turns. And I'm looking at the safety of that for you people and myself both. And the date on the other, and I think other than that, as the comments are rolled up and everything's pretty well subject to building permits, which we do not intend to build anything. The lot's not big enough, even with this rezoning, to warrant any size building economically. It's better for us to use it for storage of what we can get, and we can only get about 60-65% at the most out of our site there because of all the easements and the setbacks and the road down through the middle of it. And that leaves us only a certain amount of storage we can use. And it makes it tough to pay for it.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for either Mr. Morrow or Mr. Ryberg?
I've got a follow-up.
Commissioner Hanson.
I got a follow-up question. It's really more of a question for, I'm sorry, I see what you're saying. It says here on the conditions that the landscape shall be inspected by planning and development prior to July 31st.
That's
So,
correct. It is that's the
so
deadline that we
what would the
understand.
date that would you want on that, instead of
August.
July 31st? August 31st?
Is that what you want, August 31st is the deadline on that, on the landscaping?
Yeah, that would be a great help.
Okay, so an
I'll
extra
have
30
the
days
curb
on
and
that?
gutter in by then.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner
the
Pulaski.
question I have is regarding the sidewalk issue. Do we have somebody from transportation that can explain what his concerns are and what anybody professionally?
Good morning, Greg LeBrie, Transportation Department. And I just became aware of Mr. Ryberg's concerns. As far as the requirement, per the agreement, we usually put curb, gutter, and sidewalk along the entire property boundaries, adjacent to the property boundary. So that's what's expected of the agreement, and that's all we're trying to enforce.
Commissioner Pulaski, do you have further questions on that? I do, actually, Greg. 54th Avenue, that's currently a two-lane road, correct?
Yes,
And U-turns aren't allowed there anyway, correct?
that's correct.
Okay.
So maybe we would-
So I'm going to state that I'm probably reluctant to accommodate illegal U-turns there by not requiring what we would normally require here. The other question I would have is, what are the long-range plans for the size of that road? Do you know?
No, we do not have any long-range plans at this point. It's just that the fact that we're putting curb, gutter, and sidewalk in Washington Street as we speak, and that would be a good tie-in, just enforce the agreement that's already been in place.
Right. I understand. Commissioners, do you have any comments or questions?
May I
Oh,
comment
Renee?
on that?
Renee, did you have a statement?
If I may, Renee Valdez with the Transportation Department also. So the long-range plans of 54th Avenue, that's actually the dividing line between us and the city and county of Denver. So that is intended to be a future collector road. But right now, we currently just have it as a local.
Perfect. Thank you, Renee.
You didn't tell us we were going to get double teamed this morning.
Well, it's good that you're going to have a collector road in front of your industrial property.
One of the concerns that we've had from the start is that he's not just against putting in curbs and gutter, but he would be somewhat against that idea if his were the only property that were required to do that, creating a small island of curbs and gutter for no practical purpose. As I understand it, the property owner to the west will also be required to put in curbs and gutter. But my further understanding is to the east, that that's not going to happen. Is that, I'm not sure exactly what the plan calls for.
Is that a question for staff?
Well, first of all, I just wanted to indicate that I'm not sure that the plan to the east requires that property owner to put in curbs and gutter. So if that is not part of the requirement at this time, then if he were to stop 20 feet short of the property line, it would have very little or no consequence at this point.
Okay, staff, do you have a comment on that?
Sure, so the requirement for these two properties is from a development agreement from 1981 that was already signed and executed. So then any properties to the east, such as the Anderson PUD, I believe it's called, it is currently a vacant site. So when anybody comes in to develop that site, they would then be required to install the appropriate street improvements.
So, Mr. Morrow, does that answer your question? It sounds like everyone will be required to do the same thing.
Well, of course, there's no current plans to develop that property or indication that that's going to happen in the immediate or foreseeable future, but.
Commissioner Henson, do you have a question
You
or
know,
comment?
that attitude's frustrating to me.
I'm sorry.
That attitude of yours is frustrating to me because that probably for generations of commissioners, people have come in and said the same thing. And now we have entire stretches of road that have no curb and gutter that the taxpayers are going to have to pay for eventually when we widen those roads. I don't think it's unreasonable for us to expect people who develop to follow the rules and the codes in the Adams County Planning Department, and that was adopted by the commissioners in the past. You know, when we don't have curb and gutter, then we have stormwater problems, and we institute a stormwater fee that people don't like. And we don't have curb and gutter, then you know, we have neighborhoods that you know look pretty crummy. And I'll be honest with you, you know, looking at the front of this property, there appears to be some code violations there to me. And I'm tired of Adams County looking like garbage because people say, well, it doesn't matter because no one else does it, and so we shouldn't have to do it either. So, you know, that's really frustrating to hear.
Well, let me add one thing here. I don't think characterization of an attitude is entirely correct. We came up with this idea as trying to come up with a practical solution to a potential issue that might be created by completely following the plan. Second, I don't know exactly what code violations you might be concerned about, but one of the ones that we've heard of is the fact that there are metal on the fences, and I have to tell you that metal was put on there at the request of the county a long time ago. He didn't put that up there on his own. So we were just following what the county required back in the 80s. And to be honest with you, if one of the requirements was that the metal on the fence be taken down, that would be complied with. So our attitude is a positive attitude. We're trying to work with the county, and we're also in the process trying to make some intelligent suggestions that might have practical value.
Mr. Egerberg, how long have you owned the property?
How long have you owned the property?
Since '81. I'm 83 years old, and I'm trying to get it all in compliance. And I'd like to vacate Horton Court, but the Transportation Department's been holding me back because they don't know what to do with that 36-inch sewer water, wastewater that comes down part of Horton Court and then goes across Eaton, across Anderson subdivision to the east of us and goes out across and drains into a pond on the south side of East 54th. And that sewer line is owned by Metro Wastewater Reclamation District. And it's a 36-inch line that comes down along the Horton Court and crosses there. And the Transportation Department is saying we're going to have to get in here to do this and that. Sure be an expensive way to do it when they got a 40-foot easement through here. And I'd like to get that vacated, but they're the ones that's been holding us up, and I've been trying that since last year.
Okay, so, and I understand, I think you could continue working with transportation on that. Are there any other, before I have another question, do other commissioners have questions or comments? No? Okay. When was the 1981 agreement supposed to be completed?
I didn't,
When does the 1981 agreement, when's that supposed to be completed?
1981 on
the agreement in 1981.
There was no curb and gutter agreement in 1981 when I bought the property and I started doing my first things there.
I have a question for staff. Staff, would you like to comment?
Sure.
or-
So per the agreement, it says construction completion dates. Construction of the above street improvements shall be required to be completed within a one-year period commencing upon the date that the developer receives written notice from the Adams County Engineering Department.
Okay. So, Mr. Ryberg, it appears that we're asking to just continue the obligation that you already have and then continue that same obligation on the other parcel of property that you're now combining with the original one. Does that make sense?
I didn't quite hear all that.
Maybe you can repeat that again?
He was already obligated to provide curb, gutter, and sidewalk on the parcel that he bought in 1981.
I still didn't receive it all.
He says that the original agreement, when you bought the property, required curb and gutter back then. And
Yeah, it was Eaton Industrial, yes. I forgot about that part of it. I didn't sign anything, but I'm all in favor of the curb and gutter. It'll improve the property. The landscaping moved down under the curb. I have plenty of it up above, but we'll put some in down there because I think it'll make it look better.
Sure.
And I have no complaints with all that.
Now, you had mentioned that you're going to work with the property to the west of you on doing the curb, gutter, and sidewalk?
To the west of me, we're going to go talk to them. I'm going to talk to them this afternoon because I'd like them to coordinate their design and doing the curb and gutter with me
That's a great idea.
and see where they're at on it.
Commissioners, do you have any other questions or comments? Commissioner Henry,
Actually, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion for approval.
thank you.
Okay. I make an approval with 8 findings of fact, 8 conditions, and 1 note with the change, number 7, where the inspection was going to be July 31st, to make it August 30th on the landscaping. Is that number 7? Yes, it is.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear about number 7.
Number 7 would be changing from July 31st to August 30th to give them more time for the landscaping.
Thank you.
Second.
Commissioner Henry,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanson,
Aye.
Commissioner Pulaski,
Yes.
Commissioner Odericio.
Thank you. Good luck with your improvements on the property. And at this point, if there's nothing else, we will adjourn this meeting.
You just said good luck on the property.
Huh?
Said good luck on the property.